guest is back, you might say, by popular demand. When Lloyd Pye was here a few months ago, I never anticipated his very controversial views about the evolution of man was going to generate such a response. Well, he's back again to talk about that and give us an inside look at what might have happened to radio show host Art Bell, who mysteriously disappeared off the air just recently. And welcome back.
Well,
it's good to see you again.
To be back. It's very exciting to be here.
You know, who would have thought that talking about the evolution of man and creationism and Darwinism, I mean, I got calls for days after you were here. This really piques people's interest. Well, let's start with that, because most people either fall into the category of thinking that, creationism, God created the earth and man, or Darwinism, we all sort of evolved from lower life forms. And your research shows, in your opinion, that neither one of those are true.
Right. I've done some extensive research. Well, the book is divided into 4 parts, as we talked about last time. In part 1, I go over Darwinism mostly, not so much creationism. If you believe, you believe. You're not subject to argument very much if you're a creationist. So I go after what the Darwinists say, and I show how that, in fact, they don't explain either how life came to be here or how particularly we came to be here. The evidence that they have is contingent on something called macroevolution, which is species into species. There's really no evidence for that. The creationists do make that argument, and I think they make it accurately. There is absolutely no evidence anywhere of true macroevolution, species into species. We have changing body parts, which is called microevolution. Darwinists take the microevolution and they extrapolate. They say, well, if you can have change in parts, you can have changes in the whole bodies. That's what Darwin himself said. Actually, the truth of it is, though it seems logical, it's not borne out anywhere in the record. So
if we didn't evolve, then, and you don't believe that we were just plunked here, then where did we come from?
Actually, no, we are a developed species. Now, as far as other life forms, they too are, and they do seem plunked here, actually. I call it cosmic dump trucks in my book, starting with the Cambrian explosion of about 530 million years ago. But as far as humanity goes, at around 4 million years ago, something appears called the Australopithecines. We are told that we humans evolved from these creatures called Australopithecines that later evolved into something called early homos, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and that means man in scientific terms. Neither of those look anything like us. We've all seen the skulls and the body parts in National Geographic. They don't look anything like us. They have no foreheads. They have big brow ridges. They have large, round, nocturnal night vision eyes. They have big, wide noses. Mouths stick off their face, no chin, long arms that dangle down to their knees. In no way do they look human. So anthropologists don't argue the point. They say, you're right, there's nothing that looks human in the so-called pre-human fossil record.
This is where the missing link comes in.
Exactly.
There's something between pre-human man and...
They say we're going to find someday something that is going to indicate a transition from these creatures that existed to man, which looks nothing like them.
This Bigfoot? We're talking about Bigfoot.
At around 120,000 years ago. Exactly. Those creatures, the Australopithecines and the early homos that go back to 4 million years, they are the ancestors of today's living hominoids. Hominoids being Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the abominable snowman Yeti, and 2 other kinds that we have on the planet, but we're not very well aware of in the West. There are 4 kinds of hominoids, just as there are 4 kinds of Australopithecines and 4 kinds of early homos. It is their ancestors, the hominoids, that are the so-called pre-human ancestors. If you make that link, if you accept that hominoids are alive, and I go over a lot of proof in the book and in my presentation to show that, yes, there are hominoids out there. There's plenty of room. We have captures. We have killings. We have enslavements. Trust me, the hominoids are there. Your skunk ape here in Florida, they're there. They really are real. So if you make that link that it's their ancestors, it means humans have no place in the natural flow of life on Earth. So then you have to ask the question, where did we come from? And in part 4 of the book, I deal with that, and I believe that the Sumerians, the ancient Sumerians, and what they had to say about it are correct. And what they say is that there's another planet in our solar system that was captured by our solar system as the solar system was forming. It is not in a counterclockwise circular orbit like the other natural planets. Because it's captured like a comet, it has a clockwise elliptical orbit of 3,600 years. On that planet, the Sumerians say, lives a superior race of beings known as the Anunnaki. They call the planet Nibiru. They call the people the Anunnaki. They're called the Anunnaki. The Sumerians, the first great culture that we have on the earth 6,000 years ago, right out of the Stone Age, possessing over 100 of the first that we attribute to a high society. They're the very best of the ancient cultures, preceding and better than the Egyptian, Greeks, and the Romans. In their writing, the first writing, of course, they said that there's another planet in the solar system that they called Nibiru that was captured and moves like a comet in a 3,600-year orbit. Our own astronomers know it's out there. They call it Planet X. It has gravitational effects on the outer planets. They can't find it because it's so far out. Exactly what the Sumerians say.
The superhuman race lives?
They say that on that planet the Sumerians do live another culture called the Anunnaki, and that in our past, in the past of Earth, at around 400,000 years ago, they came here to work, to do a job, which I go over in the book, and while here they decided to create a slave, to genetically engineer a slave, using the creature of Earth as a genetic base to make the new slave and servant better adapted to the planet than they were.
That's us?
That's us. Basically, the Anunnaki said in their writings that the Sumerians left behind, we shall make the Adamu. They called their slave servant Adamu plural, which comes down to us in the Bible as the Adam. We shall make the Adamu in our own image, after our own likeness, word for word in the Bible, and they did that. So
no, wait a minute. You're saying
like
that we, the modern race of people, were genetically engineered by this superhuman race of aliens that came from other planets.
And that we look like them. In the cylinder seals that we have, the 5,000 or so cylinder seals that we have out of the Sumerian culture, depicting gods and humans on the same cylinder seal at the same time, they always look the same.
And this is why we only use 10% of our brains.
They genetically engineered our brains. They gave us their bodies. We have, you will notice, we have tremendously reduced strength from primates. If we descended from primates, where did our strength go? Every primate is 5 to 10 times stronger than we are pound for pound. How did we lose 2 chromosomes? All primates have 48 chromosomes. We have 46. That is an awful lot of DNA. Where did it? If you read the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki flourished from around 400,000 years ago. And by the way, they called where they lived in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, the Eden. That was their word for where they lived.
So we've heard Adam, and we've heard Eden.
Well, it turns out that a lot of the Old Testament is an attempt to rewrite the Sumerian epics of creation because they were considered to be the guys with the word.
I have to break here.